What's truly startling about hoarding disorder is just how prevalent it is in streets and towns across Aotearoa. Up to 90,000 New Zealanders are estimated to be on the hoarding spectrum. 90,000! Though more often than not, it's hidden in plain sight. AJ is a 55-year-old former head teacher and recovering hoarder. Her hoarding's been a tightly kept secret most of her life. It's complicated. For a start, AJ refers to herself as we, not me.
We operate sometimes as a 6-year-old and as an adult, and because we go from perfection to chaos, that has huge impact on our world.
AJ has a range of mental and physical health conditions common in hoarders: poor eyesight, mobility and hearing issues. She also has obsessive compulsive disorder and a condition called other specified dissociative disorder, often caused by severe childhood trauma.
Also sleep apnea, and we're also deaf and we have visual, so all of those things impact how you operate your life to the best of your ability.
AJ's hoarding began as a little girl. She's now recovering. That's why what you're seeing now isn't typical. It looks cluttered, but not like this.
Holy crap!
I have 3 houses full of stuff.
Hoarding has become a commercial, ratings-driven commodity on shows syndicated around the world, including here.
You are hoarded out of your house, which means there is no place to sleep.
The desperation, the drama, the effort to try and make sense of it is breathtaking.
Why would we want to keep a moldy Spice Girl? Because it's what I do.
When we look back on our life realistically, some of it, when we were a child, we had trauma in our life young, and so to manage and cope with some of that trauma, things became very much a focus. Because we believed we flew away and left our body, sometimes we used to put heavy books in our school bag at secondary school, like heavy textbooks, so that we didn't fly away. And we have a doll's house, and we used to tip everything on the floor, like all the rooms, all the doll's house furniture, all the dolls. So that was quite young. And when we didn't sleep at night, we used to get books and build like towers of books to feel safe. And I suppose as an adult that just evolved.
Hoarding disorder is specified as a persistent difficulty discarding. AJ also watches hoarding shows.
If Deborah continues down the path of being a hoarder, she's probably going to lose me and her family.
But unlike those here, she successfully hid her hoarding from everybody in her life. Whānau, friends, work colleagues. They had no idea.
Like, how could I have known someone and not known that she was going through that? How did I miss it? And what could I have done? What could I have done differently? Because, I was in and out of her home a lot when she was an educator with us.
Hoarders are expert at keeping it from the outside world, and Raywin, AJ's friend of 20 years and an ex-colleague, was no exception. But that all changed in 2020 when AJ reached out for help.
And literally that was the first time I had been inside her house for a couple of decades probably. And I felt so terrible that she had been living like that for so long and I was unaware of it.
When would you say was the worst time for you in terms of when you were hoarding?
It increased substantially in COVID because of the isolation. A lot of hoarders are really isolated, and so COVID was totally impacted it and became a lot worse.
At the time, AJ's house was full of newspaper clippings, which she said had helped make her feel safe. To make matters worse, her therapy dog had died, and she also didn't have access to a working kitchen or washing machine. It was at that point she knew she needed help.
I knew that COVID was difficult for her. She had made a few comments at times, and I remember saying to her, well, if I'm going to talk about it, I need to see it. And she was like, no, because I can't show you, because it, the shame and the embarrassment. And I had no comprehension of what it was like where she was living. And that very first time, all we did was she opened the front door as far as it would go, and there was just all her things, just right there.
There's little in the way of hard data, but the University of Otago, in a first ever study of pathological hoarding, estimated there are 35,000 clinically severe hoarders in New Zealand and another 56,000 with subclinical hoarding issues. There's no specific breakdown yet on how many of them are Māori.
There's a lot of shame and isolation around the disorder. So normally what happens is they get identified through a housing agency.
Myjanne Jensen is a hoarding specialist and has more than 18 years of experience working in the field across Australia and more recently in Aotearoa.
A lot of clients are in denial for two reasons. One is a thing called clutter blindness, where they actually can't see it and are not aware of it. It's almost like a disassociation to their surroundings. But secondly, that admitting that it's problematic means that they have to do something about it.
And it's not just problematic for the hoarder, it becomes an enormously confronting issue for whānau as well.
Family and friends are so frustrated with the condition and so grossed out by it, and understandably so, but they stop visiting. But there's often a lot of breakdown because of that intolerance to the condition, because it feels like that person should just be able to chuck it out. It should be just that simple.
But of course it's not. Myjanne says there are two types of hoarding: organised hoarding, like with AJ, and then there's the sort of squalor that often features on the TV shows.
Hell, there ain't nothing the matter with me. My God!
When I see squalid environments, which are, there's rot and mould and faeces and dampness and rubbish and food that's decomposing around the house, and then you can have more organised hoard where there's this chronological ordering around information stacking, like newspapers. And then there's animal hoarding as well, so where people, and more often than not, it's inspired by the want to save animals that are being neglected.
If you want to help a hoarder, don't get a big script and yell at them. Encourage them, get alongside them. Don't go in and throw things out that actually increases hoarding.
Considering just how many of us are dealing with different degrees of hoarding disorder, you'd think there'd be help out there, but it's hard to find.
I don't know of any psychiatrists or psychologists that are specialising in this disorder in New Zealand. My understanding is that most people that do attain their accreditations as psychologists and psychiatrists don't have any training in hoarding disorder within their training curriculum. So yeah, at this stage I haven't found anything in New Zealand that's more specific. I think there is some movement from around ACC and getting ACC to acknowledge that this is a disorder, and so people can be getting some support through there, but I think it's early days at this stage.
AJ couldn't initially find help with her hoarding here, so was referred to a specialist program run by Catholic Healthcare in Sydney.
And we were the first New Zealander to get some help regarding that, and they were amazing. But it wasn't an easy path.
She learnt coping strategies like the indoor tent she retreats to when she's disassociating and in hoarding mode. There are positive affirmations all around the house. And this. So you use these lists every day?
Yes, yes.
How do you use them?
We do the tasks on them, not necessarily in the order, but we then can know if we've done the task. We slide it across so we can clearly see at a glance if we've done the task. And if we slept in, for example, then we'd choose the top priority, the most important. It keeps us accountable, and we used to forever have thousands of packets of paper with lists everywhere. And this is actually a lot more productive. And it's worked. The things that they've taught us have worked. They also work on other areas in your life so that, and they only get you to deal with the hoarding for short blocks, because it's very draining on your brain because you're trying to change your behaviour. And so they work with you in small blocks. So we live by a timer. We have a timer for everything we do in life. We have lots of visual little cards, because as we've been sorting through our stuff, we just find hundreds and hundreds of lists, hundreds of them, that say the same thing over and over again. Then the feet stopped and collapsed in a heap.
AJ has also created a book based on her story. She calls it the Foot Book.
The feet broke well and truly. They were never stopped. This was a sign.
She reads aloud to remind herself of her strength and to take small steps forward.
My feet cross paths with big strong feet with evil eyes on them. We were told then that it always, you have to work on it, just like any addiction or anything in life that's hard.
And what about friends and whānau? How can we best help loved ones dealing with the disorder?
I think just accept them the way they are and don't try and change them, and definitely don't come in and try and fix everything. Don't come in and think, actually, while they're out, if I just actually clean everything up, it's going to make it okay, because it's actually not. That's actually going to increase the hoarding, because if they feel like they've been violated in another way, that's going to make it worse.
But there are seriously practical concerns as well. Australian studies show how hoarding poses real fire risks.
Northern Suburbs couples learned firsthand the dangers of hoarding after their home erupted in flames.
25% of all fire fatalities for over the age of 55 in New South Wales has been recorded to be due to hoarding disorder. So there's a lot of safety hazards that come up in hoarding households, and some of them might be things like the exits are blocked, the walkways are so small that emergency services struggle to get in and out of the premises.
When MFS crews arrived, they struggled to get close enough to the blaze, the house on all sides surrounded by junk.
There's so much in the house. Yeah, and that did not help.
Hoarding has only been labelled as a disorder in the last 20 years. ACC offers limited support, and there's little in the way of support for frontline clinicians. Myjanne Jensen is the first specialist to offer hoarding-specific training here. For her and everyone dealing with the condition, it's a complex, step-by-step process that requires enormous patience, aroha, and empathy.
I think people need to know that it can happen to anyone. There's always a reason for the start of it, and they're actually trying to protect themselves in a way that works for them.
Quick fixes don't work, so we can go and remove all the items against someone's will, and it's a hugely traumatic experience with them. They'll be back to where they were 2 years later. The work that we need to be doing is long and considered and thought out and deeply connected with our clients that we're working with.
Hoarders aren't just lazy and dirty. Often when it gets worse as people get older, the best thing you could do is work alongside them and encourage them to learn more, and for you to learn more about what it is, and encourage them to get help to work with what is behind it, because the stuff is only stuff. It's what's behind the hoarding that creates the change.